the mind can only repair itself through silence. We need to treat our mental health like our physical health, that if I want to build this muscle and have a strong mind and get rid of brain fog and be calm and present and a better father and all that sort of stuff, I just got to build the muscle.
Welcome to the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. You've already started to create the life you want just by being here. Designed for you as a business professional so you can be physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, more productive, less stressed, and living a life you truly love. My name's Kingsley, and thank you for coming on another journey with one of our uniquely qualified professionals.
Greg is a gifted intuitive advisor, healer, and transformational coach. He spent the last 2 decades mastering what it means to have true success, love, and happiness. Greg's journey in life is never-ending search of expansion, self-actualization, and fulfillment. From climbing corporate ladders and building multi-million-dollar businesses to mastering human conditioning, the masculine mind, emotional intelligence, conscious leadership, and relationship dynamics, to expanding his intuitive spiritual connection. Greg takes his life journey, experience, and intuitive capabilities to help other powerful men, CEOs, business leaders, and entrepreneurs awaken and unlock their highest soul gifts and divine truth. Greg's mission is to heal powerful masculine men so they can find and live in alignment with their highest potential and truth, ultimately living a life of abundance, love, and happiness, which transfers into creating greater impact and legacy in the world. By helping powerful business leaders heal from the inside out, as he's done, they create inner peace and align with their soul's truth. The ripple effect of helping powerful men through this awakening and expansion process will have a profound impact on millions of other people's lives. It's so exciting to welcome Greg Gillies to our podcast. Greg Gillies, thank you so much for joining us today on the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite, Kingsley.
Now, Greg, I've been watching you for a little while, loving what you're putting out, and particularly in the LinkedIn space, and I sure hope a lot of other people are watching that space as well. But as we do, when we first get into the podcast, I want to ask a question that everyone's going to want to know the answer to, and that's, what is an evolved CEO? It takes me back to science and Darwin, but I'm sure it's a little bit different to that.
Yeah, well, basically the evolved CEO, a lot of people will probably think that I only work with people who have got the title CEO, but the evolved CEO is pretty much an evolution of, we started in my coaching working with men, small business owners, and it was called the Evolved Man. But as the program went on, we started working with higher level business leaders and corporate executives and so forth. But most of my clients, their title's not CEO. We went with that brand so that people could start looking at their whole life holistically and becoming literally the CEO of every area of their life, not just the corporate typical ideation of what a CEO is. So it's really about the driven businessmen. We typically work with a lot of married businessmen who are probably the CEO of certain areas of their life, but they're not in other areas, and they need to look at their life holistically so they can evolve every area of their life. So we do have CEOs that come to us, but probably, 25% of our clients are CEOs. The rest are just driven businessmen, executives, small business owners. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I love the fact that you said holistic approach, because I think there's no way you can work on one area and have it affect the rest of your life. You have to work on everything. It's just that simple, and everything needs to work congruently. Now, you did in there say a few times we. So explain who the we factor is rather than the me factor.
Yeah, so I've always worked side by side with my wife in this program, and that is the reason why it's holistic, and that is the reason why we are able to help our clients evolve every area of their life, is because I can't work on every level of a person. So Tracy is a very gifted energy healer and spiritual worker, and she has a lot of other high-level spiritual and energy healers come to her because her gifts are so high that she can attune them to these higher levels. So when it comes to people looking to do the deep inner energy healing and higher spiritual aspects, Tracy is one of the best in the marketplace. But the area that I focus on, especially with men, especially with the driven, masculine, successful man, I work at the level of mind. So she's working at the level of energy, body, healing, and spiritual and soul work and all that sort of stuff, which for most people, it's called the unknown. It's really, really, really important, but I work with them more in the conscious mind space and more around balancing unconscious programs, beliefs, behaviors, patterns with the conscious desires and get their mind out of conflict. And I also specialize in working in relationship dynamics. So typically clearing unconscious programs from mum and dad, and maybe relationship dynamics if a marriage is under stress or somebody's been through a divorce or this conflict in business and they want to elevate their leadership in this conflict in some of those power positions. So I work mind, relationships, and then very high level business strategy that is in line with who they are at their highest self, not who they are at their egoic self. And I help them kind of align to something that is more impact and legacy and mission driven than just the hustle and grind of just becoming successful, more financial, and maintaining a title or a status, because that's one of the problems. So the combination of that healing, that spiritual work, that alignment, that healing of the deep physical organs and glands, plus kind of reprogramming the mind and putting these men on the right path that is aligned with their higher self and what they're actually meant to do in this world that is beyond just their finances. That's the holistic approach. That's the game changer.
I absolutely love that. It's so much deeper than the surface that you see portrayed, whether it's on social media or a website or wherever it is. It's very much the surface, but there's so much underneath that, which is obviously what people actually come to talk to you about, the bits that other people don't see that you do, and get that happening. Now, before we
Totally.
get on, because
Yeah.
I want to go in quite a bit of depth into all of that, but tell us, who is Greg? We've heard about your profile, your bio, who you are, all that sort of thing, and what you do. But who's Greg? How would you describe you?
I'm just a really driven entrepreneurial businessman, but I'm also a husband, a father of three. I've strived all of my life. I grew up in country New Zealand. It was kind of that can do attitude that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So I had no problem pushing myself, hustling and grinding. But I guess growing up, um, my conscious awareness and my emotional evolution was really low. So I would do everything from a place of push through and hustle and grind, and it was never good enough. And I was moving the goalposts, and I wore a badge of honor that I could be really competitive and I could push myself to the limits. But as we all know, that's a double-edged sword, right? So you can push yourself to a point, but then if you don't know how to pull back and kind of rest and relax and repair and look after yourself, and you just keep on pushing from a negative place. And my negative place as a young man was I was never good enough, right? I was always constantly trying to validate myself. So that helped me become successful. So Kiwi kid growing up, went to boarding school, played rugby for New Zealand age grades, was school prefect. So I achieved a lot, but when I went out into the kind of business world and I took all of that attitude and kind of drive into the business world, I didn't realize it was coming from a negative place. So as I got older, I just started having more conflict with myself, right? And I used alcohol to escape myself. And I just was always trying to prove myself. It was kind of like whenever I took one step forward, my self sabotage would take me two steps back. And then that became a condition and it became this pattern. And I pushed and pushed and pushed for years and years and years until I burnt myself out. And that's kind of where the journey really begun, is because I did what I thought I needed to do to be the best that I possibly could, but it broke me. And this is kind of my breakdown to breakthrough moment when I had to go and do a whole lot of different kind of personal development, deep inner healing, energy healing, like inner child programming. I had to do all of that sort of work so that I could kind of re-identify with myself and stop pushing myself to breaking point. So yeah, it's kind of, I've got two stories. I've got two lives. I've got the I've got my life before 40 and I've got my life after 40. 39, 40 was like the biggest turning point of my life.
Yeah, which is fairly common for guys to go through at
Yeah,
around about that stage. Very common. So now let's get down to some nitty
yeah.
gritties. In regards to what affects men with the work that you're doing, let's start with men for now, with what you're particularly doing. Is it fairly typical of what you went through? Is where you're sort of having to prove yourself, you're having to be this person, and be, I guess, be a certain person to feel your worth, your identity, and feel acceptance and that sort of thing. Is that fairly typical? Are there other things that happen with men as well?
I get asked the question a lot of time, why do I only work with men? And I don't only work with men, but I market to men. I market to people like me because my journey, my story, my healing, my everything is my program, is how I can help another man, right? Like, I don't believe you can help somebody go through something at the deepest level if you haven't experienced it yourself. You can share a lot of information, but we live in a world where we don't need more information. We need deep transformation. We don't need more information. We just Google it. We ask AI. Yeah. So, sorry, I just went on a bit of a tangent. Do you want to repeat that question?
Do you feel like your journey is fairly typical of a lot where it's, I need to prove myself, I need to find my identity, find who I am because of outside pressures, whether it be from family or maybe growing up being bullied or whatever it might be? Or is there some other factors that come involved there as well as that?
Yeah, totally. So sorry. Um, you find me a man who is over energy in chasing success and achievement and out of balance in his relationship, marriage, home life, and his health. And I can guarantee you without a doubt, I can find all of the deep underlying programs that are not serving him that are causing the imbalance. And this is societal programming. This is generational programming. This has happened for thousands and thousands of years. The identification of what a man should be, but we now live in 2023 and there's a lot of conflict and confusion about what a man should be. So a lot of men will become highly driven to be successful because the deepest generational programming is you need to be a good provider. And if you're a good provider and you protect and you give your family everything that they need, you've made it, you're a king of your household, everybody will love you and you'll be happy. So we've got these very successful men in society who have done exactly that. And it was exactly what I was doing. I would sacrifice and I would put my career and business and finances and lifestyle and just creating everything that I wanted my family to have as the number one priority, but it took me away from my family. So it gets to a point where we need to break those programs before we lose what we actually truly care about. And I see it time and time and time again. And men are aware of this now, and they'll be aware that they need to kind of balance out and spend more time with family and be more emotionally available for their children and focus on their health and all that sort of stuff. But it's not that easy. It's not as easy as just going, oh, I know that now, and flicking a switch and then just being this new guy, right? This is deep. This is deep psychological programming. It's even in our DNA. So there's a study of epigenetics. Epigenetics is the coding of the DNA in our physical body that we pick up through birth, through our parents. We also pick it up through generational lines, and then we pick it up through the environment, the beliefs, the stresses, and everything that we go through. So you can't just flick your switch and change your whole gene expression, right? So this is the thing. Men are so caught in their mind and they've got so much information and they know what they need to be doing and they might do it okay for a period of time, but then they fall back into old ways and then they get caught in these cycles and then they feel guilty and then they feel stressed and then they push and grind and it's just a lot of men are in these cycles and they need to break out of them and they don't know how, and information can't do it. Information's not enough. Information gets to a point where they've got so much information and they're hearing the same thing over and over and over, it actually makes them feel worse. Because it's just like, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. So now I've got a different level of emotions coming up because I'm not doing what I should be doing. And I'm hearing it from my wife and I'm having to go through the stresses of the global changes which are affecting my business, whether it's highs and lows. And it's just, there is so much going on for our target market that they will just shut down and go into survival mode and just try and do what they honestly feel like they can do. So they are living in a state of fight or flight. They're either fighting to get what they need done because that is their instinct, that is their animal primal brain doing its thing, or they go into flight mode where they just go, I can't do this anymore. I'm about to have a freaking mental breakdown. I'm stressed. I've got it coming at me from every angle, and it doesn't matter how hard I work or what I do, it's never good enough. And then they get caught in this cycle. And I see it over and over and over again. I couldn't see it when I was in it because it was like I was blind. It was like I was so shut down and so closed and so de-evolved spiritually that I couldn't see it because I was it. Yeah.
I relate to that, but there's a wall here because obviously getting past that wall, that's where we're like in a place we don't want to go mentally or spiritually in that area. But there is there. What would you recommend for people to actually be brave and actually take that step to start dealing with those things that they know they have to deal with and really are the bedrock of what their life's set on, and it's either bedrock or sand, to start making that change?
So the biggest thing that men need to do, and it's the hardest thing that they need to do, is they need to be able to tune into their feelings and their emotions, which have got the actual real message, and try and pull away from the thoughts, the ego, and the mental processes. This is where I see, if I'm just going to just go high level and just go holistically, this is the biggest challenge, is we are caught up here. Men are caught in the masculine mind and the egoic mind, and we believe everything that it says, and then it just gets so noisy, the narratives get so strong that we're kind of in this constant fight with ourselves. Yeah. And it's coming from a place of, we've done something for so long that's helped us get what we desire, but now it's becoming our nemesis because we keep on pushing the same path and we're never happy, we're never satisfied, we're never fulfilled, that we start causing self-destruction, we start causing disharmony, we start causing dysfunction in our relationships and in our health. So when we live a life by the mind and by the ego, and we believe what the ego says, and we kind of stimulate it, and we chase these dopamine hits, and we're constantly on our phones because we're workaholics, and we're constantly thinking about what we could do better, and we're just processing too much information. This causes so much neurological stress, so much stress in our mind, that we become really inefficient, and we start to be quite even harder on ourselves. And a stressed mind is a dangerous place to be. Now, most people that I know that are in high-powered business, corporate positions, or running businesses, and they've got a lot on their plate, and they also have wife, kids, family, mortgage responsibilities, they're carrying so much stress in their mind that it's actually breaking them down week by week, month by month, year by year. And it's the stress in the mind and the overthinking, the over analytical mind, that is causing the stress in the body. Then the body is in this constant state of sympathetic nervous system dominance, and then their body gets out of balance. And when your body and your mind are out of balance, it's hard to use discipline or willpower to go, oh, I need to start my nutrition plan. Oh, I need to meditate. Oh, I need to take the weekend off and go hiking, because you're just in this constant state of survival stress between mind and body, and people are stuck in this. The world is stuck in this.
So obviously, like you said before, that's where guys largely sit, in that place. And obviously some women are there as well, but guys in particular, because that's how we're wired, sit in that place, and they need to get to the emotional state. How do we actually get out of our mind and actually be able to hear our emotions, not from I guess, a condemning or a bad way, but understand the emotions are trying to give us some instructions and direction of, hey, this is going on. How do we actually start to listen to that, getting out of our mind?
this is why it's so hard, Kingsley, is because men are typically scared of their emotions. Men have suppressed their emotions for so long that when those emotions come up, it's uncomfortable, right? It's the anger, the frustration, the irritability, the guilt, the shame. It's those emotions that keep on bubbling up, but they're the messengers. They're the messengers to just say, hey, you're on the wrong track. Hey, you need to listen to me. But we hate them. So we just shove them down, pretend they're not there, use our phone, alcohol, porn, whatever, to just pretend it's not there and distract ourselves. So we have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. Now, this is a really, really good point, and it's easier than what men think, is because what I really like about working with driven men is when they make a decision to do something, it's on. The decision is made, they switch paths and they go, I'm gonna do this. Like when a client makes a decision and understands how deep the work that they're gonna do with Tracy and I is, and they're past the fear of it, and they're just like, I want to do this, and they make that decision energetically, they've made the shifts, right? Energetically, mentally, emotionally, they're just like, I'm ready to deal with my shit. I'm ready to now listen to those emotions, heal from it, get underneath it, get past the avoidance. I'm ready to deal with it. So for men to make the decision to switch and say, I'm going to deal with this, but I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know it's going to challenge me, but it's that uncomfortable, challenging phase, which is where the growth comes from. Yeah. So when they step into it, it's actually not as scary as what it is, but it's making the decision. Now, the mind is constantly trying to protect you, so the mind will stop you from making the decision. So, the biggest challenge with men is what they need to focus on or what they need to do to change is the exact thing that is stopping them from making the decision to change. So, as soon as a man makes a decision to go, I've had enough of this, the way I'm doing it's not working, I need to deal with my shit, and I'm willing to face it head on, and just that decision, it's like a paradigm shift just in its own. But then they obviously need the right coaches, healers, facilitators to take them down a path that they're not just getting fed more information and come out the back end of another program frustrated because it was just like, oh, that was nice for a couple of months and it was good to have some accountability. But if you're not doing the deepest level of work, if you're not healing your physical glands and organs and getting out of that deep state of survival stress and balancing and clearing your mind and breaking old programs and doing a lot of high spiritual work, it'll be like these personal development junkies. They're constantly doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing because when they're doing it, they feel good. But when they're back in the reality of their life and they don't continue with these practices because the deepest underlying programs and stress and imbalance slowly pulls them back, that's where they get frustrated. And then they'll start looking for quite extreme things, like maybe I want to do plant medicine and go on an ayahuasca or mushrooms, and I want expanded consciousness, and I want to be doing 10 ice baths a day. And men can become these kind of masochists sometimes, where they will push themselves to the extreme of something that they think is going to give them change, which will give them health benefit, but they're missing the whole picture. They're missing the whole picture, that they just need to go in and they need to go deep and they need to make different decisions to heal and balance. Because men will typically go and do something that is quite masculine and hardcore to get a result, where they actually need to do something that's more feminine and more softer and more nurturing and healing to get the true result. We're already too over masculine. Masculine's up here, feminine's in here.
Yeah. Is there a general time frame it takes people to go through this process? Everybody, I imagine, is going to be a little bit different, and does it depend upon who they've got working with them and how, I guess, much they can actually go internal a little bit. Internal is probably not the right way to put it, but get into that emotional and spiritual level. Does that determine partly how long it takes to make these changes take effect?
So I can only talk to the time frame of our program. So for our private clients that work with us one-to-one, not the group stuff. The group stuff is really good, but it's more of an introduction. Our private clients will work with us initially for 4 to 6 months, and we work on every single area of their life, but the whole focus of that 4 to 6 months is what we, in our 9 pillar program, what we call the first 3 pillars, which is health and happiness, and that's mental, physical, and spiritual health. And it's a healing program. It is straight out healing. It's not even information. Like, our clients, they don't have to really do anything when they come into our program. They just need to show up, and we do all the work. We facilitate all of the work. So Tracy's literally healing glands and organs. Now, the reason why it's 4 to 6 months is because we can shift, our spiritual and our emotional change can happen really, really fast, but it's the physical change that takes time. So when Tracy heals and balances somebody's glands and organs, the body takes time to rest and repair, to get out of that deep state of sympathetic nervous system dominance, because all of our cells at a cellular level, they all renew in certain time frames, like our eyes renew their cells, our skin, our, like everything, right? So the physical healing process takes time. The emotional and spiritual is really fast. So that's why we work with them for that period of time, is because when they come out of it, all of the triggers, all of the deep stress, all of the unconscious programs, all of the compounding 40 plus years of life, we've started to reverse. We've started to unwind and undo. So when they come out the end of that process, they're on a completely different foundation. It's not information based, it's healing at the deepest level. It's aligning mind, body, and spirit and soul. So from that foundation, then they can do all this other stuff, and it'll be this massive compounding effect. Yeah. So instead of coming in with a deep state of stress, a lot of our clients have got Epstein-Barr virus, which we talk a lot about, which is the deepest underlying cause to a lot of physical ailments, illness, disease, adrenal fatigue, burnout, all of that sort of stuff. If they don't heal that deepest underlying cause, doesn't matter what they do. Everything else is a band-aid fix. Everything else is focusing on the symptom. You need to find the deepest underlying cause, and when you heal, balance, and let go of the deepest underlying cause, it's like this compounding effect of growth. So that's why our process, I can only speak to our process, because I haven't seen anything else in the market that combines what Tracy and I do at that level. So I can't talk timeframes with other stuff.
No, that's good. It gives us a good idea. And if that's what you're doing and it's working, that's a pretty good idea, I guess. Now,
Totally.
in relation, because obviously we're speaking mostly to men at this stage with what we're doing and where we're going. For them, and married men, who is what you tend to work with mostly, for them to make these changes, how important is it to have their wife on board with them?
We notice a huge difference when our clients are in a supportive relationship, definitely, because a lot of men's stress. I shouldn't say just men, right? Let's just focus on that niche of the married businessman. A lot of married businessmen stress when they come to us. Yes, they've got stress in business, but it's a different level of stress in their business. It's kind of like a stress that they can manage because they feel like they're in control, and the relationships in a business environment are different. Like, their employees have been paid to do a job, and if they don't do the job and elevate and they coach and lead them properly, then they just swap them out. But it's the stress of the dynamics and the conflict that a lot of men end up in their marriage, because the man is just like, I'm doing everything that I can. I've got you the beautiful house. Look at the life that you want. And their wife is just like, I don't want all that shit. I just want you. And they're stuck because they've kind of come apart. They've kind of living these different dynamics, and they don't know how to come back together. So when there's that level of stress at home, and the wife is like had enough, or he's even gone through divorce, and there's none of that support there, or it's dysfunctional at home, and the wife is not wanting to work on herself, it is a lot harder for the man. Yeah. Because a lot of these successful businessmen find the home dynamic the most stressful, because they just don't know what to do. They don't know how to. That's why they keep going back to work. We've worked with clients who don't need to be in their business. Their businesses are running fully under management, succession planning, and all that sort of stuff. But they feel like they just put themselves back into the business because it's like a safe haven, because the home dynamic can be quite stressed. So to answer your question, a supportive wife is an absolute game changer. And we might market to men, but a lot of our clients' wives come and work with us after they see the change of their husband. And now Tracy's breaking away. She was predominantly just under the Evolve CEO brand, but she's launching her own products around Epstein-Barr virus and her own healing modalities, and they're focused on women. That's going to explode. Like women's health, women's empowerment, that side of things is just going to be mind blowing. It's already She's already got massive engagement. So
That's
we
awesome.
ultimately do want to work with couples. We've actually got a brand sitting there when the timing's right called the Evolve Couple. Because Tracy and I work together, we are an evolved couple. We're constantly working on ourselves every day. And we just see that it's just going to be a natural progression is to work with other couples that want to evolve together.
And definitely needed as well. And then how do you the
Yeah,
flow-on effect there with the family with the kids and that sort of thing? I would imagine there's going to be a difference in how the fathers, if they're fathers, how they actually father their kids and the time they spend with them and how they actually spend their time and that sort of thing. Is that something you go into much in what you do?
100%. Yeah. So here's the thing. When we do the deep inner work, the mental, physical, and spiritual work, we're literally unpacking and letting go of everything that's not serving them. And as they let go of all of those things that aren't serving them, they show up as different fathers. They show up as different husbands. They don't feel guilty when they become present with their children, because typically these guys are so stressed and work consumes their mind, like business consumes their mind, that it's really hard for them to be present. And then because it's just so hard for them to be present and just give undivided quality attention and time to their children, it makes them feel guilty. Yeah. So all of those dynamics break, like breaking them away from their business, like guilt and shame in men is huge, because they are constantly trying to do what's best, and they feel like if I finally get my business going because I gave it all of this attention, I know that I've let my family down and I haven't been available and I haven't been present. And then they come over here and they just go, right, now I need to have more time and be present with my family. But there could be a lot of conflict. It could cause a lot of triggers and a lot of emotional kind of baggage comes up. So they just go, okay, had enough of that. And they jump back over into their business. And then they're just playing this yo-yo and this dance where they're just trying to spin all the plates, and they feel like, oh, when I finally get this part of my life going well, then this one falls to bits, and they're spinning plates and they feel like they can't elevate all of the areas of their life. They naturally do become better in all of the external areas of their life when they heal at the deepest level internally, is because everything external to them is just a reflection of who they are.
Yeah.
So the relationship dynamics is a reflection. So a lot of men, they will end up fathering like their father fathered them. Yeah, whether that's good or bad. But we live in a different time. Like our granddad and then our dads, they were in an era when one income probably gave a good, comfortable life. And it was the clients that I work with, they've come from a generation where it was the typical dad worked, brought home the bacon, 9 to 5, maybe ran a business, and mum was at home, looked after the kids, and they had their role. We now live in a time where a lot of women are mums and working, and dads are trying to run businesses and be a parent, and they don't know how. They haven't been taught. It wasn't part of their upbringing, and they feel like they're out of depth and they feel like there's too much and they're spinning all these plates and they're stressed, and we just haven't been taught. And now we're trying to figure it out from a place of compounded stress. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And when you go back to what you were talking about before and where you come from, of the performance mentality as well, because obviously, a lot of parents, that was put onto them, especially the dads, is you need to perform, you need to be at this level, you need to be this, I'm doing this for you, I expect this out of you. And it's like everything. To a degree, that's good. because we need expectations to bring us up. But at the same time, there's the overkill of all that side of things, where too much pressure and too high expectations and not appreciating the good stuff leads to what you've talked about, and the anxiety and the internal conflict, I guess, that's going on as well all the time. I wanted to touch on
Totally.
something, ego, for a little bit. Because ego is one of those dirty words, but it's actually not at the same time. So I believe we're all created with an ego, specifically guys, created with an ego. But when it's put under the wrong influence and under the wrong pressures, is where ego becomes a negative thing. So obviously, in what you're doing, you're dealing with egos constantly, I would imagine. Give us
Yeah.
your
I'm
view
dealing
on
with my own
yeah.
on a daily basis.
Give us your view on ego, how to work it so that we're actually in control of the ego and it's not driving us so much.
This is how I explain it to everybody. The mind was designed to be a servant, but it's become the master. When your mind is the master, you're not in control of yourself. The ego is. And the ego is literally a byproduct of all of the events, the learnings, the influences, the compounded stress, the trauma, the emotions, and everything compounded to a point where it's just trying to protect you. But it's protecting you from a place of fear, lack, not good enough, blah, 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 blah. So it's actually not serving you. It's actually one of the reasons why you've got so much conflict and drama and stress in your life, is because this compounding effect of this egoic mind. So just keep it really, really simple. What I'm about to say is simple, but it's not easy, because it's millions and millions and billions of thoughts and processes and events and emotional triggers and everything compounded that makes our ego control us. We need to understand that we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, and the heart is the gateway to our spiritual self. So for a lot of men that are controlled by the ego and live in their mind, they are not spending enough time living in the center and their heart space where they connect with their intuition and their higher spiritual self. So they're not listening to their true guidance. They're listening to fear-based programs in their mind. So if we're listening to our true guidance and we're connected to our spiritual self, and we've done the healing so that we can actually naturally calm down, take time without guilt, meditate, be silent, be with ourselves, journal, and really talk to our intuition and really connect at that deeper level with ourselves, this is where all of your wisdom comes from. This is where all of your truths come from. Yeah. And then the mind is the servant that is an amazing tool, when directed correctly, will help us achieve whatever we want in life. But because we're disconnected from our heart, we're disconnected from our spiritual self, we can't hear our own intuition. We believe that the ego is our intuition, but it's not. We can't discern between intuition and ego because we're just listening to everything that's up here. So when this is the master, you are always going to end up in conflict. Always going to end up in conflict. And then you'll justify the shit out of it. So we have businessmen that become really, 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 really successful, and they're treated like gods in business. And then their relationship and their marriage breaks down. And they just go, well, it's her fault because I've done everything. Look at the life that I've given her and all that sort of stuff. And then they have a marriage breakdown. And then they have a second marriage breakdown. And then they realize that they've got no love and happiness in their life. And then they feel stuck. And then they're just like, I'm worth a lot of money, but I'm miserable. It's because they let this thing control the whole journey.
That last 2 to 3 minutes, Greg, is unbelievably powerful. And I hope people go back and listen to that again. Not just listen to it, but actually start acting on it, because that is some of the most powerful stuff we can ever hear, especially if we want to make a change in our life. I really appreciate that. That was absolute gold.
And that's the thing, because what I just said is the actual truth, but I had no idea about that until I had my breakdown. Literally, I lived and was sacrificed to my ego, and my mind got out of control. And the only way that I could calm down my mind so that I could be a bit more present and happy and fun dad to my little kids was to drink. I used alcohol to change my state so that I could show up differently for my family. And then I'd drink too much. And then I'd be angry dad. And then my kids were just like, I don't know what we're going to get. Are we going to get happy, jovial, had a few beers, fun dad? Or are we going to get hungover, agitated, angry, don't make a peep dad? And I started hating myself. I started hating myself because my kids were scared of me. I started hating myself because I couldn't get rid of alcohol. It was just like this relationship that I had with alcohol. I was just like, it was this love-hate relationship. It was like, if I don't have this, I'll disintegrate because I can't process all the shit that is going on for me because I was just living in here.
And that's the bottom line of the whole lot, really. But I want to jump in there, and I need to say this because there's a lot of people listening or watching who right now are feeling guilty because they're doing exactly what you talked about. And first of all, don't feel guilty. Don't beat yourself up because like Greg just said, you don't know that you actually what's going on inside of your mind or your heart or anything else. You don't know, and you definitely don't understand it. So the first thing is to work out what can you do to make a change, whether it's get in touch with Greg at the Evolve CEO, talk to us here, whatever it is, know you've got to make a change and start doing that. Don't feel guilty. Don't put the guilt on yourself because that's the worst thing that can happen. But make sure it's a priority to do what you need to do to be there for your family, for your kids, for yourself, and for your business at the same time. I just had to say that. I think that's critical.
Yeah, totally, 100% agree with you. And that's the trap. That's the trap of the ego. That's the trap of the mind. Is that men will hear this, men will resonate with it, men will be just like, you're dead right, and half an hour later, their mind will tell them, no, you're fine, mate. You can figure it out. You'll be good.
So, Greg, I'm a busy entrepreneur. I'm running a big business. I've got so much stuff going on. I don't have time to sit down and journal and meditate. I've got too much stuff going on for that. What's your answer to that?
If you don't have time to, if you don't have time to put into yourself, if let me come from a science angle. The mind can only repair itself through silence. The mind can only repair itself through silence. Do you know that stress is the underlying cause which creates a lot of disharmony in the body, which is creating this massive surgence of neurological disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of that sort of stuff? If you don't have mental silence practices in your life, I don't care if it's journaling or meditation or whatever, they just work. They're just proven tools that work. But if you don't have some sort of daily routine to give yourself mental silence, or to even prep yourself at night and have a bedtime routine so that you can get quality sleep, your body's actually never resting and repairing, and you will end up getting sick. End of story.
Yep.
Because it's just what happens when the body gets into dysfunction. So maybe instead of just going, I can't meditate because I can't slow down my mind, I can't journal because I don't know what to write, forget about the thing and just reprogram yourself to understand, if I don't give my mind silence, it will catch up on me because it's not resting and repairing. Things will get worse. Then go and find out whatever it is that you're going to do that gives your mind silence. And you might find that you come back to meditation because you've reframed. Instead of saying it's too hard, I can't do it, you just go, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I'll go and do a meditation course, or I'll go into, I recommend One Giant Mind that does a 12-day learn to meditate. It's designed for people who have got busy minds. I recommend that to all my clients that have never meditated. You just go,
that's an app.
It's not about the meditation. Yep, it's an app. One Giant Mind. As soon as you log in, it's free. 12-day learn how to meditate. Teaches you how to meditate. You can pick how long you want the meditation for, and he guides you through it. And it's just like, don't fight the thoughts. You need the thoughts. The whole idea of this style of meditation is to let the thoughts flow, because once they flow, it gets to a point where they slow down because you're not fighting them, you're not resisting them. A lot of people think meditation is I need to silence my mind. It's not. You need to allow yourself to process your thoughts till they get quieter and quieter and quieter, and then you end up silencing your mind. Yeah. So it does. That's the thing. People are getting so much information about you got to do this, you got to do that, morning routine, meditate, journal, da 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 da. The action that they're trying to take is very, very difficult because they haven't created a frame of reference in their mind behind the reason why they need to take the action. And the reason why is because your life depends on it. Your mental, physical, and emotional health and well-being depends on your mind getting silent time. Your marriage, your relationships, being a father, your business, it all depends on it. This is why our framework, the 9 pillars of success, love, and happiness, pillar number 1 is mental health. We were never taught growing up to have mental health practices. It was just not anything that people spoke about. It's only been in the last probably 10 years where it has blown up. Like the science behind all of this sort of stuff and understanding the mind, understanding neuroscience, understanding the spiritual mind-body connection, it's not woo-woo crap anymore. It's scientifically proven that people are now waking up to it. However, they've got so many blocks and restrictions, it's not as easy as just flicking a switch and making a decision. It's like building a muscle. If you've never been to the gym in your life and you want to get ripped and fit, you know you're going to have to train for probably 90 days in a consistent program to be able to see some sort of results, nutrition and all that sort of stuff. But why we're just at a point where we need to treat our mental health like our physical health, that if I want to build this muscle and have a strong mind and get rid of brain fog and be calm and present and a better father and all that sort of stuff, I just got to build the muscle. I just got to practice and practice and practice. And if I don't want to, that's more reason why I need to, is because the mind's trying to fight it.
Yeah, and our Western culture, like you said, is only just coming to understand how that actually has a real effect on us. It's not just some woo-woo thing in the back of the mind or something. It's very real and it affects everything else, and is a, the pivotal point of how the rest of our life really, really operates. 100%. I believe there's a whole bunch of people right now who have really gone, okay, yeah, that is who I am. That is how I'm feeling. I don't want to face it, but now I realize how important it is. I have to face this. So just in closing, and I really hope people get in touch with Greg, go online, look at the Evolve CEO. If nothing else, go and follow him on LinkedIn, because the stuff he's got on there is absolute gold, but make a difference in your life. So some questions we always ask at the end of the podcast is on Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast. And as a company, we're always talking about the ultimate tomorrow. So I want to ask you, Greg, what is the ultimate tomorrow?
Just be 1% better than today. 1%. That's it.
Simple.
This is when we're talking about the ego, one of the biggest challenges of the ego is the ego is always way out in the future, always trying to create this new future, these desires. The more present that we can be, and the more we can understand that little tiny changes on a daily basis is the key to everything that we want. And we just become 1% better every day, which I recommend another book called Atomic Habits. You have to read this. If you want to change your mind through habits, you need to understand exactly what the brain does to break old habits and form new habits. And this is all about 1% better every day.
Yeah, no, that's gold. And so second one, and you've sort of touched on it a little bit there, but how do we create the ultimate tomorrow?
We have a framework to go through to assess your whole life, the 9 pillars of success, love, and happiness. And when you finish that framework, you can see where the gaps are. And so many men get really, really stressed is because they try and think that they need to do all 9 pillars and all of the subcategories of all 9 pillars, and they don't have the time or the capacity and all that sort of stuff. No, you don't. You need to assess your whole life. You need to reprioritize your whole life, and you need to identify where can I put whatever time or investment into myself that if I improve that one pillar, all the other pillars will benefit. And I can guarantee you it's always comes back to mental health, pillar one.
What's the best way to find you? What's the best way to
You
get in
there?
touch with you?
My personal website is greggillies.com, and everything is linked off there. My podcast, The Evolved CEO, is off there. The Evolved CEO program, the 9 pillars of success, love, and happiness, everything. Just go to greggillies.com or follow me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for today. That was absolute gold. And there's literally no excuse now for people not to go out and make the changes that every one of us needs to do to make that 1% incrementally better person that affects everything else in our life and around our life, and the people around our life, probably more importantly than anything. So I just want to thank you so much for being part of the Tomorrow Is Not Today podcast, and really appreciate the time that you've given up today.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite. Cheers, Kingsley.